This will probably get me banned, but let's have a conversation about COVID, masks, and vaccines. Hello everyone, I'm Bobtheorc, and welcome once again to my roof because it's a nice sunny day. I'm supposed to get some sunlight, it's fresh air, it's all good for you. And let's have sort of an honest conversation about some things. I don't usually talk about this kind of stuff, but a good friend of mine from college asked a question on Facebook, and I think she was asking it with good intentions. You know, she was genuinely curious, and she was asking, why is it that some people don't want to wear masks, and why is it that some people don't want to get vaccinated, and what would convince them to change their mind? And you know, I happen to interact with a lot of people from a whole bunch of different viewpoints, and you know, especially because I travel so much, not so much recently. And so I thought I would I'd try and tackle this question while I was sitting up here enjoying this wonderful day. So let's first talk about some context, okay? And first off, I'm not going to give any medical advice. I'm not a doctor, and I think that regardless of what I say, you should talk to your doctor about what you should do, because that's your doctor's job to give medical advice. My job is to not give medical advice. I'm just some fat guy on a roof giving you my opinion. So regarding masks, the first thing that we should understand is that there's been a lot of, how do I want to say this politely? There's been a lot of evolving understanding. You know, our understanding of science is a process, not a religion, right? You've got a lot of people who don't understand this. And science is a process of asking questions and then testing your hypothesis and seeing what the results show. And our understanding of how to deal with this virus has been evolving as we gain more information. You know, we were late to the game on it. Back towards the beginning of the year, maybe even in December, you know, I sent my dad, I think it was early January, I sent my dad one of my hazmat suits to New York. My doctor in New York had been telling me that he'd been seeing some really strange non-influenza type pneumonias. And so I wanted to, just in case something weird happened, my brother and I were talking, and we decided just in case something weird happens, we should send Dad some protection. And you know, the full mask, you know, industrial respirator that filters out everything, and all that stuff, right? And so if you want to be protected, there is actual really good equipment, and I have some of it, that will protect you against all kinds of stuff. You know, the virus particles and chemicals and all kinds of dangerous you know, pathogens and whatnot. That's a lot better even than an N95 mask, which is still a lot better than a cloth mask. And so there's a scale of protection. And the general idea is that you're wanting to add friction to the system. That the whole reason they tell you to stay 6 feet away from people is or 2 meters if you're in Europe and you're not using freedom units, is because that's sort of generally what was understood based on data from other respiratory infections, other airborne pathogens. But 6 feet is not as good as 20 feet, and 20 feet's not as good as 100 feet, and 100 feet is not as good as 1,000 feet, and you know, how's the wind doing, and there could be all kinds of other variables, right? So it's sort of guesswork. It's kind of like educated guesswork, right? And you know, I'm sitting alone on my roof, and there's nobody within sight of me. I don't give a damn. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm up here. I'm going to enjoy the fresh air. Fresh air is good. We have a general understanding that fresh air is better than enclosed air. The virus tends to spread more, or at least it's believed. Many people believe it spreads more indoors than it does outdoors. And proximity is certainly a factor, right? And so when you're talking to somebody who's not wearing a mask, what's their situation? Are they on a crowded subway in New York City? Well, if I were in a crowded subway in New York City, I'd probably be wearing my industrial respirator, because a cloth mask isn't going to do that much good compared to my, my respirator, right? And ideally, I wouldn't even be on the subway to begin with. I'd just be walking. On the other hand, here in Oklahoma, I'm driving my car. I'm the only one in my car, and maybe I have the window rolled down, and I just don't care because I'm not near anybody. But when I deliver groceries to an elderly friend of mine, I put on my mask, even though I'm just dropping them off in his garage and I'm not getting anywhere close to him, just in case, right? Some people are concerned about wearing masks for long durations. It does impair your breathing. You're adding friction to the airflow. And the idea is that any viral particles on water droplets will fall to the ground at a shorter distance. But any viral particles that are in an aerosol format could just be floating around in the air for a long period of time. So none of this stuff is like 100% guarantee. It's you're just trying to reduce the odds of a spread. So let's look at it from a big picture standpoint. The government doesn't give a damn what happens to any individual person. They're looking at the overall numbers for all of society, and they're looking at big picture stuff. They don't care what happens to you. They don't care what happens to me. They care what happens to large population groups. So if doing something, maybe reduces the spread by 10%, then in the government's mind, this is a good idea because we're reducing the spread by 10%, and that will help a large number of people. However, in an individual situation, it may not be applicable to your particular situation. I have a friend who has a respiratory problem, and he can't breathe very well in a mask, and he's been advised not to wear a mask because it's going to cause him. He's already at a low blood oxygen level. Now that's probably a rare case, but there are some people out there who may not want to do it for medical reasons, and so I think people wearing masks are somewhat situational, and if they're not in crowded public spaces, it may not matter. Or if they're outside, it may not matter. And some people may not wear the mask just because they're pissed. Keep in mind that a large portion of the population, a statistically significant portion of the population, doesn't trust the government. Another large portion of the population doesn't trust major media. And it doesn't matter if the government's honest or not, these people don't trust them. And it doesn't matter if major media is honest or not, these other people don't trust them. And these aren't always the same people, but hell, there's 10-15% of the population that doesn't believe that we landed on the moon. So you're going to have a statistically significant portion of the population that just doesn't trust the government. And I have friends of certain ethnic minorities who say that they don't trust the government because their ethnic minority has traditionally been used as medical guinea pigs, historically speaking. I mean, a lot of people are going to have their own reasons for that, so I don't think it's as good, it's not as simple as, oh, do this for the good of society. There's a lot of people who don't trust what's going on, they're pissed, and also keep in mind that over the last year and a half during the pandemic, we've seen the largest wealth transfer in history from working class and middle class people to the super rich. My business has really suffered, while Amazon is showing record profits. Walmart is showing record profits. A lot of my customers have gone out of business. So you've got a lot of people who are maybe losing their jobs or having a lot of financial problems. I'm still doing okay. I plan for the future. But there's a lot of people who are just screwed economically. And the moment you have trouble putting food on the table, you start not caring very much about anything else. Historically, when you start seeing uprisings and riots and civil disobedience, it's usually when people start having a lot of really serious financial problems. So we should consider that as well. When you're asking why is somebody not wanting to wear a mask, they may just be sick and tired of it, and the risk of COVID, in their opinion, may be significantly less than the risk of the economic damage that they're suffering, or they may just be fed up with this. Because remember, we were originally told 15 days to flatten the curve, and then it, which was largely successful. The hospitals didn't get overloaded to any significant degree, or they got overloaded, but they didn't break, right? People got treated. So we were largely successful in that. But then all this stuff kept on going for a year and a half, and people, lost their entire livelihoods. They lost decades worth of hard work, you have to understand what some of these people are going through before you make some blanket judgment. The other thing to consider when it comes to vaccines, I think we're sitting at something like 75% roughly of the population has had at least their first dose of the vaccine. Keep in mind that probably most everybody who's going to willingly get the vaccine has already gotten it, and the people remaining are probably not willingly going to get it. And some people, there's a small portion of the population who have been medically advised by their doctors not to get it. And once again, I'm not giving medical advice. Talk to your doctor and do what they say, right? There's some portion of the population that really doesn't trust the government and really doesn't trust the media. I had one of my friends tell me that, for example, that he doesn't want to take something rushed through by Trump because he doesn't trust Trump. And then I'm like, well, Trump's not the president anymore. And he's like, well, I don't care. Trump pushed this through. I don't trust the guy. Well, I mean, how are you going to convince him? Hell, you had roughly a third of the population who believed that Trump was some Russian agent. Whether he is or isn't is irrelevant. You had a lot of people believe that. Just like you have a lot of people believing, stuff about Biden as well. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. A lot of people believe it. And so there's so much distrust in society right now that I don't think that if somebody that you really hate or really don't trust says, you should go do this thing, and you don't know one way or the other whether it's a good idea or not, you don't have the expertise to know, are you going to listen to the person who's consistently lied to you and screwed you over? Probably not. So a lot of people who aren't getting the vaccine voluntarily, not necessarily because their doctor told them not to, but because they just simply don't want to, a lot of it's probably because they just don't like being told what to do. Americans are generally very stubborn people who don't like being told what to do. And, as far as convincing people, I think it would have been a much more successful strategy to say, hey, there's this vaccine. It's, we rushed it through, but it seems to be working pretty good. It seems to have some good benefits. The side effects don't seem to be that bad. This is our list of side effects. Go talk to your doctor, see if it's a good idea for you. Here's the pros and cons. People would probably, respond better to that. Everybody knows that medication has side effects occasionally. Life is full of trade-offs. You go and listen to any medicine ad on TV, and it always gives some list of crazy side effects, right? And then when you're told, here's this vaccine, there's no side effects, you're not allowed to talk about it on the internet, you'll get censored, people are going to be suspicious. And I don't know, I'm not a doctor, I don't know if there's side effects or not. I would assume that it's probably pretty good because, doctors are generally telling people you should go take this vaccine, right? So it's probably fine. But I don't know, I'm not a doctor, I can't give you any advice on that. But that also means that most other people who are also not doctors probably have no idea, and they may not trust the people they see on TV. And I do know a couple of doctors who are very skeptical because they think that this was rushed through. Are they right? Are they wrong? Hell, I don't know. I know a lot of doctors who think this vaccine's great and that the mRNA technology is going to revolutionize medical science. Is that true? I don't know. Probably it's true. And so the thing is that let's not worry about the medical side of things. Let's worry about how the information's being presented. You have you have a virus that occurred, and we won't get into where it came from or how it started or any of that stuff. That's irrelevant to this conversation. But you have a pandemic that occurred during a very divisive political time where people just don't trust each other. You know, for probably the last decade or two, you know, our politicians on all sides and media on all sides have been trying to build, build distrust among the population. You know, my team versus your team. You know, my general opinion is that the ruling class wants to keep people divided, because if we ever sit back and realize that we're all being screwed by the same people, we'd team up and vote all these jerks out of office. And that's probably the bigger picture. But nobody knows what's going on. It's kind of like, you know, in the old days of Soviet Russia. I had some Russian friends telling me that, you know, back in Soviet Russia, they knew that the government was lying to them, and they knew that the media was lying to them. They just didn't know what the truth was. They knew that everything was a lie, but they had no way of knowing what the truth is. And we're in sort of a similar situation now. Most people who are skeptical about stuff, they just assume that everything that they're being told is a lie. They have no idea what the truth is. And so we have to understand some context. If you want to understand why people are making these decisions that may seem very irrational, you have to look at it from their point of view. And I think we need that context if we're going to understand why it's going on this way. Now, as far as moving forward goes, I don't think that you're going to convince a lot of people who haven't gotten vaccinated to get vaccinated. I don't think you're going to convince people. I think you're going to see fewer and fewer people wearing masks as well. What are you going to do? You're going to try and do like an Australian-style totalitarian lockdown? I mean, those guys have gone full Nazi on their population. You know, I had a buddy who had the COVID Gestapo go raid his apartment, search through his closets looking for Anne Frank, just because his neighbors called in and thought he might have a girl over because he overheard him talking to us over on Discord while we were playing video games. That's fucking crazy. We don't want a society like that. And I think that you're going to see Americans really push back against that kind of authoritarian enforcement, right? So I don't think, short of that, you're not going to see these people getting vaccinated or putting on masks. You can try and ostracize them from society, but then you're just going to get a split in society. You know, you're going to see people, you know, set up their own institutions, and you'll see a big schism. We're already seeing a huge schism in society, and that schism is far more dangerous than the virus is. That has a, 99% survival rate for most younger people, and 95% survival rate for older people. If you don't take into consideration the long COVID stuff, which I don't understand what the risks are on that. But in general, a lot of these people are also refusing to get vaccinated or wear masks. They're younger people. They're at a lower risk. And then when they hear people talking about, well, you can still spread the disease even if you're vaccinated, I don't know if that's true or not, but they're hearing that. People talk about that on the internet. So a lot of these young people are just going on doing whatever they want to do. Or, you have people who get vaccinated and then just go right back to life as normal. And then they supposedly catch it or spread it. Or who the hell knows what's going on? I don't know what's going on. I'm just some guy sitting on my roof working from home. Thankfully, I've got a job that I can do mostly from home, so I don't have to care what's going on with the rest of the world. I'm pretty isolated. But I think I have some perspective, from the people I talk to. So you've really got a lot of different problems to consider. And until you rebuild trust in society, I don't think that you're going to solve these other problems. And there's too much distrust going on in society right now, and our various political and social leaders have driven huge wedges into society for the sake of personal gain, political gain, financial gain. Everybody's getting played. And until we solve that problem, we're not solving the virus. I think that over time we'll learn to live with whatever this turns into being. I've heard some people say that this will likely evolve much like the flu. When the Spanish flu came out, it was just nasty and killed people by the hordes, and now it evolved into something that nobody cares about, even though it still kills like 100,000 people a year. And maybe we'll get lucky, and maybe COVID will evolve into something like that, or maybe we'll all get wiped out in some apocalyptic disaster. But until we solve the social problems and the trust problems in our society, we're not solving any of this other stuff. Well, anyway, I just want to thank everyone for watching the video. If you like this kind of stuff, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Don't be assholes to each other. If we're gonna solve these problems, we need to really fix the social problems, social divides in our country. And we got to solve this problem of trust. Big thing about America is that we trust each other. We can have freedom because we trust each other to look out for one another and make good decisions. So we've got to rebuild that social trust. So share the video if you like it. You can check me out on Locals, bobtheorc.locals.com. And I'm going to go hang out in the sun. Have a good evening. And thanks for asking the question. If there's anything else that you guys want me to talk about, go hit me up on Facebook or put something in the comments. I'm not that hard to reach. And we'll have a good, honest conversation about some crazy stuff that'll probably get me banned from YouTube. You guys have a good evening. Good night.